players that broke the rules. The world of NBA basketball is a game structured by rules. It's called organized sports for a reason, right? NBA players are generally regarded as fierce competitors, and fierce competitors don't always manage to keep their emotions in check. Sometimes, that's when the rules get broken. Instead of spending our time talking about extra steps or dress code violations, this list is reserved for the out-of-the-ordinary breaking of NBA rules and traditions. So let's take a closer look at some of the times NBA players bent, broke, and in some cases straight up headbutted the rules. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the little subscribe button and follow our channel for updates so you don't miss out on other great content. Don't go anywhere. These rule breaks are truly fascinating, and you may be surprised to learn that many of them contributed to the rise and fall of franchises around the league. Gilbert Arenas, locked and loaded. Gilbert Arenas. So talented, so eccentric, so extra. In the early 2000s, Arenas was one of the brightest young stars in the NBA. In 2005 and 2006, he averaged almost 30 points a game for the Washington Wizards. Unfortunately, by 2008, the three-time All-Star had already suffered 2 meniscus tears and has many knee surgeries. Besides his silky smooth jumper and a legendary plus and minus, his other claim to fame has to do with a slightly different kind of firepower. It began, as all great NBA beefs do, with a card game. During a road trip in 2009, teammate Javaris Crittenton lost a card game to Arenas. Post-card game emotions ran high. In response to the exchange, Arenas showed Crittenton his collection of guns. The situation went from 0 to Tarantino real quick, especially since Crittenton, in response, pulled out a loaded piece of his own and allegedly pointed it at Arenas. Both players were disciplined. After the incident, the league declared Arenas a detriment to the team and handed him a 50-game suspension. Agent 00 would later be traded to the Orlando Magic and become the first player ever waived under the new amnesty clause rule. Was Arenas calling Crittenton's bluff that day in the locker room? Was it really all fun and games? As Kanye West once said, I guess we'll never know. Draymond Green goes nuts. When professional athletes resort to throwing punches, things can get pretty nasty pretty quickly. We're looking at you, Bill Laimbeer. That's probably why the rules against physical altercations are in place. But there are accidental punches born out of passionate frustration. And then there is Draymond Green. During Game 4 of the 2016 Finals between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors, LeBron James and Draymond Green have been going at it all night. In the third quarter, they got tangled up and went down to the ground. As the two attempted to separate, LeBron stepped over Draymond. Green, not one to let anybody get away with anything, appeared to lash out and swung a closed fist in the direction of King James' royal jewels. Draymond Green was issued a flagrant foul. No big deal, right? Not quite. Because this wasn't just any flagrant foul. It was Green's 16th technical foul of the year. That meant Draymond would be automatically suspended for 2 games. The Warriors just lost their motor guy in the middle of the most important series of the year. King James and his subject would go on to steal one of these games on their way to winning the city of Cleveland's first championship in 60 years. A year later, Golden State would exact their revenge in a finals rematch. But the Draymond Green punch fiasco remains a glaring misstep in a legendary 5-year run by the Warriors. Duncan gets the last laugh. Joey Crawford was without a doubt one of the most polarizing referees in recent memory. If you saw him coming with a whistle, you knew something was about to go down. His long storied history of conflict with, well, pretty much everybody, made him a must-watch TV in the early 2000s. Perhaps Crawford's most befuddling use of the whistle came towards the end of the third quarter in the 2007 Spurs-Mavericks game. Tim Duncan, from the bench, didn't necessarily agree with one of Crawford's foul calls, so he did something totally unforgivable. Something so egregious that Crawford had no choice but to take extreme disciplinary action. That's right, Tim Duncan laughed to himself from the bench. Crawford seemed to think Duncan was laughing directly at him, And it was Duncan's second technical foul of the night, which meant automatic ejection. Duncan couldn't believe it. He hadn't even said a word. Not only that, he wasn't even in the game. A confused Duncan was then escorted out of the arena for laughing. It would go down in history as the big fundamentals only career ejection, and what would be the beginning of the end of Crawford's career as an NBA referee. It's just like the old classic saying, he who laughs last gets unceremoniously ejected if Joey Crawford is officiating. Cheap shot Rob and the infamous hip check. Playoff games always come with an increased level of intensity, but the heat of the moment doesn't mean the rules are up for interpretation. In Game 4 of the 2007 Western Conference semifinals, point guard Steve Nash dashed up the court quickly with 10 seconds left and no shot clock. He barely got over half court before Robert Horry decided to take matters into his own hands. Horry stepped in front of Nash as he crossed midcourt. Nash went flying into the scorer's table, and what happened next would pretty much dictate the course of the Western Conference that year. Because before Nash even had a chance to react, the Phoenix bench rose up angrily, like they were sitting on a beehive. Suns staff, including significant rotation starters Boris Diaw and Amari Stoudemire, stormed the court in an act of solidarity for their team captain's safety. As a result, they were swiftly fined and disciplined by the association. 1-game suspensions were handed down to both Stoudemire and Diaw. The next 2 games were crucial in the series, and the Suns lost to the Spurs in both. The Spurs would go on to win the 2007 championship, leaving Sun fans heartbroken. The Malice at the Palace. We could have included plenty of on-court brawls on this list, but of all these, only one has been dubbed the worst night in NBA history. The Malice at the Palace. The whole game had been, let's say, scrappy, but no one in attendance of the Pacers-Pistons matchup that night had any idea what they were about to witness. It all started when power forward Ben Wallace got clobbered across the face on the way to the hoop by the artist formerly known as Ron Artest. Wallace retaliated, and the situation quickly shifted into mayhem. And within minutes, players, coaches, fans, and stadium officers were stumbling over seats and throwing food, beer, fists, and elbows. In short, the fiasco turned into an all-out brawl quicker than anybody could control. Who's to say what rules were broken, or rather, what rules weren't broken that night? The melee led to countless rule changes, fines, and suspensions. Stephen Jackson, Ben Wallace, and Ron Artest were disciplined especially harshly for their part in the scuffle. It was truly a spectacle of dramatic rule-breaking proportions. Here's hoping it was the last of its kind. Ricky Davis and the almost triple-double. It is an explicit violation of the rules for an NBA player to shoot into the opposing team's basket. And it's also an unwritten rule in the NBA that when the player is over by an insurmountable margin, the last few possessions are strictly procedural. If you didn't love the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2005, you might not remember the antics of Ricky Davis, aka Get Buckets. One of Davis' most infamous moments occurred in 2003 during a game against the Utah Jazz. With 6 seconds left and his team up by 25, Davis found himself just 1 rebound shy of a triple-double. Davis caught the final imbalanced pass and headed straight for the closest basket, which was the opposing team's. He chucked the ball at the rim to collect 1 final rebound and secure his first career triple-double. He did not get credit for the rebound attempt, and the only outcome was a hard shove from his defender, Deshaun Stevenson. When asked about the incident after the game, Jazz coach Jerry Sloan said, "Deshaun fouled him. I would have fouled him too. I would have knocked him on his ass." I guess players stuffing their stats isn't always a good thing. Did I mention the Cavs only won 17 games that year? Dennis Rodman butts in. NBA refs are always in the hot seat. Fans despise them, coaches yell at them, and every night thousands of people yell at you for 3 hours straight about how you're bad at your job. No matter how you slice it, somebody is always going to be unhappy. It's probably because of this that there are also rules constructed to keep referees safe and off limits during games. Players are not allowed to touch the referees during a game. Sometimes it happens by accident, shout out to Paul Pierce, but every so often, players' emotions get the better of them and they try to take out their frustration on the men and women with the whistles. Dennis Rodman is perhaps best remembered for his defense and rebounding on the court. Off the court, he was famous for a general pattern of rule breaking, whether that be his unique clothing choices, crazy hair, even an unlikely friendship with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. Once, during a game, Rodman disagreed with the referee whistle to a rather extreme degree. Rodman had already received a technical foul earlier in the game for throwing the ball in anger. Later on in the game, the Worm found himself again dissatisfied with the referees and wanted to make sure they knew it. A technical was given, but that didn't stop Rodman from using his head. In frustration, he leaned in, battering Ram style, headbutting referee Ted Bernhardt before finally being separated and escorted away. Rodman was ejected, and thankfully Bernhardt was fine. But Rodman wasn't finished. As teammate Luke Longley tried to talk him down, Rodman ripped his jersey off, flipped a couple of chairs, and stormed into the tunnel shirtless, yelling explicitives at the officiating crew. Will someone tell this guy that you can play for the Chicago Bulls without acting like a literal bull? Lou Will gets his wings. The 2020 NBA bubble was an overall successful attempt by Adam Silver and company to keep the NBA season alive amid the COVID-19 pandemic. But when a man needs his wings, a man needs his wings. Lou Williams got himself into a bit of a predicament when he was caught breaking quarantine to pick up a bucket of chicken wings at the Atlanta strip club, Magic City. But instead of ordering Postmates like a regular Joe, Lou Will used an excused absence from the team to see family in Atlanta as an opportunity to pick up some wings for himself. Unfortunately, rapper Jack Harlow, also at the club at the time, snapped a picture of Lou during his sacred quest for a plate of the club's Lou Will Lemon Pepper Barbecue Wings. That's right, Lou likes the Magic City chicken wings so much, he's got his signature plate. Harlow tagged Williams and posted the image to Twitter, and then Lou Will returned to Orlando. He was forced to quarantine for 10 more days and missed his team's first real game inside the bubble. When asked what made him do it, the 3-time Sixth Man of the Year simply said he was hungry. In Lou Will's defense, everyone seems to agree that Magic City's wings are something truly special. But team rules are made to be followed, especially when there's a pandemic going on. What do you think about this list? Did we forget one? Comment your favorite one below. And if you like these, leave us a thumbs up. We want to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe for new videos and updates as they happen. Thanks for watching. We'll see you for the next one.